Hi, I'm David Filson. I'm pastor for teaching here at Christ Presbyterian Church. We're committed to discipleship, and I'm excited to share a couple of the opportunities you have for going deeper into discipleship here at Christ Presbyterian. The very word disciple in the New Testament is the Greek word mathetes. It simply means learner. And in Mark chapter 3, verse 14, we read that Jesus drew his disciples to be with him. And so intimacy is a key aspect of being a disciple of Christ. And then in Luke chapter 6, verse 40, we read that his disciples learned to be like him. And so imitation, which is fueled by that intimacy with Christ, is a part of what it means to be a disciple of the Lord Jesus. And this invitation to communion with Jesus goes hand in hand with community with each other. And so in our core discipleship classes, they exist not just for information, but for transformation, learning together as well as doing life together. And we have 4 tracks for core. Christian living, orthodoxy, reach, and exposition. And this year, I would have to say, we have a more robust, more variegated offering of core discipleship courses from which you can choose. And all of this is because we believe that good theology matters. We believe that discipleship matters. We believe that community matters, and ultimately because you matter deeply to us here at CPC. So we have a great team of men and women who will be leading these core discipleship classes. I'm sure there's one just for you. Next week at the Welcome Center, you'll be able to pick up a core discipleship class brochure with all of the classes listed and all of the details that you'll need to know. Your only problem is going to be the option anxiety from all of the exciting opportunities from which you have to choose. Today, as well as next Sunday, we're also receiving nominee ballots for new officer nominees, men for the offices of elder and deacon. If you've received their permission to submit their names, please do that. And all of that is going to be in preparation for our new and expanded Leadership Discipleship Intensive, which will be on Wednesday nights, 6:30 to 8:30, from September 7th to November 23rd. In fact, this is open for all of the women and men here at Christ Pres who would like to maybe just learn a little bit more about the mission, vision, and values of Christ Pres, or just go a little bit deeper into their own discipleship for their own growth and encouragement. On November 23rd, we're even going to have a little celebration commendation for all the participants in our new Leadership Discipleship Intensive. And following the holiday break from January 4th to February 22nd, January and February, we're going to take the new officer nominees into a little bit deeper dive into material uniquely geared toward the work of the elder, which has to do with shepherding and governance of the church, and deacon, which has to do with service and ministries of mercy. But even that is open to everyone who would like to be a part of that and just go a little bit deeper in their own discipleship. This is all designed to bring our new officer nominees into a deeper relationship with one another, a deeper relationship with our current officers, as well as their understanding of what it means to be an officer here at the church. This process is going to help guide our nominees into understanding their own sense of desire and readiness to serve as an officer, as well as how the Lord might be leading them as to discern their own gifts and design and how that might fit with the office of elder and deacon. Then at the beginning of March, the first couple of weeks of March 1st through the 15th, we'll conduct our officer interviews, and at the beginning of April have a new slate of recommendations that you'll vote upon, and we'll have in the spring new elections and ordination and installation of our new officers here. Again, a couple of exciting opportunities for you to explore discipleship here at Christ Presbyterian Church. Our core discipleship courses, as well as our leadership discipleship intensives.
Good morning. I'm Angie Gage, co-director of CPC Women, and I am thankful for God's faithfulness and for the support of this church for encouraging CPC women to flourish. Last year, we added events like quarterly girls' night outs to build community and connection with one another. We incorporated quiet days on Saturday to provide intentional time for women to retreat and be nourished spiritually. We also built in an evening Bible study for women who couldn't attend the morning Bible studies and classes. We partnered with the Next Door and hosted a girls' night out to minister to women struggling with addiction. Moms and More grew and reached full capacity, touching the lives of moms from the 4 corners of our city and equipping those moms to have ongoing conversations with women in their neighborhoods and churches. Today, I'm excited to tell you that CPC Women is continuing to move forward out of these walls and into our city with a new initiative called Real Women, Real Issues, Real Hope. We'll be hosting 4 Mercy and Justice forums held quarterly, 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring at Cabana in Hillsborough Village. These forums will address real issues that real women are facing and how real hope is restoring them to life. We, as followers of Christ, are called to seek the welfare of the city, to bind up the brokenhearted, and to proclaim liberty to the captives. One of the first steps to following this call is awareness to the critical issues and needs that a growing number of women are facing in our community. God is at work, and we as CPC women want to join Him in loving and caring for the underserved. Our first forum on September 6th will be focused on human trafficking, a modern-day slavery, which is happening right here in our city. At this Listen and Learn event, we'll hear a personal testimony from a survivor. We'll learn more about human trafficking and what is specifically happening in Nashville. Lastly, we'll hear about the groundbreaking work being done through End Slavery Tennessee and how you can get connected with the End Slavery missional community. I often hear women tell me they want to get involved in helping the underserved in our community, but they just don't know how. Well, these forums are a great way to learn how ordinary women like you and me can be a part of the solution. I promise you will leave better informed, better equipped to talk with others about the issues, as well as have tangible ways to get involved on a variety of levels. For those of you who have not been able to participate in any of our studies, classes, events, or retreats, you are still a part of CPC Women, and we would love to have you come join us for these forums. Bring your Nashville friends. These are ticketed listen and learn events and will include dinner. Since space is limited, we encourage you to register now online. It's an exciting time to be a part of CPC Women, and we want you to know that you have a place to belong.
I'm Missy Wallace, and I'm the Executive Director of the Nashville Institute for Faith and Work. And I'm here to tell you how we fared this year and where we plan to head next year. And as a reminder, we exist to help people and individuals think through how to integrate their faith into their day-to-day working lives. And I do have stats for you, but before I get to that, what I most want you to know is that God has provided in so many ways, and we're very thankful. He's provided in the ways we've gotten to touch lives, financial blessings, gifts of space usage, cross-cultural relationships, a great employee for the Institute. But most importantly, we've seen Him move through individual lives and really change hearts. That's been good for the kingdom, for first and foremost, but it's also been really good for Nashville. Last year in our speaking events, our classes, and in our flagship leadership program, Gotham, and our new Faith and Arts vocation group, we touched almost 1,000 lives over the year in some capacity. Our main program of Gotham, the 10-month Faith and Work Intensive, graduated 26 people from 13 churches and 17 industries. While I expected it to be a good intellectual experience as we made our way through the coursework, I did not expect the depth of the interpersonal relationships that were formed, nor did I expect the transformative power of the heart change that we saw and the way that it really invigorated disciples and really encouraged their imagination for shining light on areas of darkness in so many areas in our city, in government, in real estate, in healthcare, finance, travel, manufacturing, law enforcement. Things really happened. A white CEO of a healthcare company working with a black pastor in the sheriff's office to try to engage a community on how to develop a piece of property. A residential real estate agent realizing that while his bank account was really prospering from the hot market, that the industry as a whole was ignoring the affordable housing issue and trying to do something about it. A manufacturing manager seeing the image of God in the line workers and changing his view on what optimal line scheduling might look like. As we think about next year, looking forward, we're about to launch a new class of 30 Gotham participants. We've got a new program to help empty nesters think through how to spend their time intentionally, We've got a new program about to launch to care for the emotional health of entrepreneurs, particularly ones who have accepted outside capital. A Lunch and Learn series and a creative writing contest are also about to launch this fall. We also have 3 large forums coming up. The first on September 29th, downtown at Houston Station. And for the first time, as part of one of our forums, we're actually going to be hosting a contest where we give away $5,000 of our mission money towards an individual organization whose work it is to encourage the innovation of others. As we look ahead to our growth in the coming years, we get really excited about what we can do and who we can be. With 1.5 million people scheduled to move to Nashville in the coming years, our city is at a real crossroads. And because of the influence of the gospel here is strong and for the most part appreciated, we have a real opportunity as a city to help people bring Christianity into every sphere of influence. And I'm not talking about the kind of Christianity that means the 10 Commandments on the wall. I'm talking about loving people, places, and things to life through music, through government, through media, through healthcare, through entrepreneurialism. It's going to take resources and it's going to take time, but now is the time for our city. So I ask for your prayers for NIFW. I ask for your prayers for our participants. Our growth has provided great opportunity for us to share Christ's love, but it's also created the tensions of a startup. We ask that you pray for excellence in our delivery and wisdom in our discernment so that we grow this in a way that first, foremost, and only glorifies God. Thank you for your time and your support, and we're excited.
Hi, I'm Stacey Croft. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm also the lead pastor for our second location, Christ Presbyterian Church in town. And you may have heard about in town, possibly even visited, but I wanted to share a little bit this morning, particularly if you haven't visited, and even if you have, to learn more about what in town has been up to and in the last 11 months, and where we're going, and the exciting things that God is doing in our larger family. You know, when Scott approached me 2.5 years ago or so, he brought up this idea to me as we were attending CPC. He said, "Stacey, I have an idea of us expanding, starting a second location to really move further into this area of the city." And as I heard about it and I thought about the vision and the movement of CPC already, it was incredibly attractive to me and exciting to think about what God could do through something like this. And now even thinking about the beginning, and we had several interest meetings over at the high school, and as I was knocking on doors of the Belcourt Theater and Cabana and other restaurants and venues, trying to figure out where in the world could we actually hold a worship service, whether it's a school or wherever it may be, to think about now that we meet in the Scarrett Bennett Center Chapel, this beautiful Gothic environment with 200 to 250 core people coming. What a glorious work God has done within 11 months, 10, 11 months of our existence. And I really want you to know that as we kind of move forward in the next year, even thinking, even if we haven't hit a full year yet, we're thinking about what God has done through major areas in our staff as well as those who are attending. You know, Brett Taylor is our music coordinator. He was on staff with me with RUF and is a singer-songwriter and is really doing a fantastic job, actually not only using music in our service, but using it as a possibility of reaching musicians in the area, especially being situated as a church right on Music Row. We also have Lorianne Merritt, who is our part-time hospitality coordinator, and she does a fantastic job. Many of you would know her and her husband Chuck, who is also an elder here at Christ Presbyterian Church. And she is the face of and warmth that people feel as they come through the doors of in town and experience a family environment. And finally, in our kids department, CPC Kids at In Town, we had Casey Oaf, who on part-time staff, began the work there, and it was a wonderful planting of a children's ministry. And now Jordan Bear, who's full-time staff and is leading our parents and children into the next step with over 30 children even visiting even within the last Sundays. We are growing exponentially in our families. And the ways that I really would describe to you are these three kind of areas. One is that it is a hospitable environment. If you were to come to InTown, one of the things I hope you've experienced, and that people who maybe identify as following Christ and those who do not have said to me that this is a place they could come, that you could come and not necessarily know everything that's going on, but feel welcomed, know that you could ask questions about Jesus, and you can actually grow in faith. We have a hospitable community, and that we're continually utilizing our Sunday morning worship as that as people walk in the doors. We've had people even walk off the street, and people who stay at the Scarrett Bennett Center, which is actually kind of a retreat center, come into our worship services, not knowing actually what we're all about, and spending time there with us and even coming back in repeated times. This is so encouraging. The other things that are happening is our community. As we've grown so quickly, we have really seen the need to actually shape and develop community. What does it really mean for us to have long-lasting, meaningful friendships that are safe, that are driving, that are transformative to people? And so as we're doing that, we've developed our Connect groups in somewhat of a different way. Especially since we don't have Sunday school classes, we utilize our Connect groups as our neighborhood time during the week, so that men and women, either multi-generational, multi-gendered groups that come together, that meet in homes regularly to talk about the Bible, the Scriptures. They're a place of care and safety and places of missional reaching of that neighborhood. We have 4 right now that have been existing over the last 6 months or so, and we have 3 new ones that are possibly going to be opening up this fall. Very exciting, just in the diameter of the city and of where we are geographically as Christ Pres InTown. And then finally, to really speak of the heart of where we're going out, so driving in and refreshing friendships and community, but that we have a location that is reaching the city, that is developing relationships with people who may not agree with us, but yet we're going into the city to take Christ and following Christ in His mission of loving people, places, and things to life. And that our Connect groups do that in small pockets. That in this fall, I'm possibly going to be teaching even a small group of a few weeks on what does it mean to have gospel communication and transfer that, to actually speak about that to those who may not be followers of Jesus. As well as on large-scale ways of city parties where we join with parties that are already going on, events that are already going on in our city that we all would attend, but how do we as a church encourage our people to be a part of and care for our city and partner with them, share that, and to move into our city with the gospel in beautiful, natural ways. Well, I'm thankful to share this with you, and I hope at some point you're able to come down just a few minutes down the road to visit the second location and to enjoy what God is doing in and through us as a larger family. Thank you for the ways you've rolled up your sleeves and helped us set up and tear down. Thank you for the ways that you have given resources, time, and thank you for the money that you've provided, the way that you've supported financially and we have partnered together in the gospel, as Paul says, to develop a larger family, to impact this city and Middle Tennessee and even the world. Praise be to God for His work.
My name is Bob Bradshaw, and I'm the Executive Director at Christ Presbyterian Church, and it is my pleasure to be with you here today to share this financial update. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for your generosity, your support, and your love for our staff, for our ministries, for our partnerships, and for our mission of following Christ in His mission of loving people, places, and things to life. The first chart I would like to share with you is the fiscal year we just completed this June 30th. Here you see both the plan and the actuals, and let's look first at the operating income, where the actuals were higher than planned by $107,000, or roughly 2%. I would also like to tell you that that was 6% higher than the previous year's contributions. Looking at the operating expenses, you see they were slightly higher than planned by about $48,000 or 1%. But I would tell you that overspend is directly correlated to the increased income, as some of those dollars come in for tuition or for missions trips, and if they come in, they go right back out. The net result is that we had a surplus of cash in operations of $635,000. And I'll speak more about where that cash is being used and deployed later. But let me stop again and say thank you. Thank you for your generosity and support. No matter how you look at this last fiscal year, it is a great story. Now let's look at this next chart where we go a little deeper into how those contributions came in this past year. And it really is a story of two different halves of the year. So we're showing you 2 years in a row to give you context. We're also showing you the first half and the second half of the year. And we're also going to show you the average weekly contributions that come in through what we would call the offering plate. You look at the first half of the year, which would be July through November, and you can see year over year, we were up 16%. We look at December uniquely because it's so large for our church and most churches, and you can see year over year, we were up 13%. However, if you look at the second half of the year, which would be January through June for us, we were down 4% year over year. Another way to look at this would be just 2015 and 16, that fiscal year. So let's look at that again vertically. You can see the first half of the year, we were averaging $102,000 per week. The second half of the year, it was $89,000 per week, down 9%. If you look at the previous year, you'll notice just the opposite, that the second half of the year was greater than the first half of the year by 6%. So again, we had a rather unique year, but in total, it was a wonderful year. I will also note for you, we are 6 weeks into our new fiscal year that started July 1st, and I will tell you that we are averaging $95,000 per week. That is 10% higher than last year in the first 6 weeks of the year. However, the target for this year, or the plan, is $102,000 per week. And so you'll see in the bulletin that we are slightly below our plan. But I want to note in this chart one more point. If you look at the first half of last year, we averaged $102,000 per week. Now let's look at the next chart, which will show us how we ended the year with cash. And we ended with $2,325,000 in total cash. I'd like to make a couple points here. One, our session finance committee established a policy this year that asked for us to maintain at least $1.5 million in that unrestricted category. That's based on best business practices in our ministries and areas that we compare to. In addition, a church our size needs or requires about $500,000 of cash on hand to meet your monthly bills. And then you add the $200,000 in capital reserve, and that gets you to about $2.3 million. So we think we're in a good position here. Also, our session has authorized us to take $100,000 of this cash and apply it to new and additional missions opportunities this year, and I'll speak to you about that at a little later part of the presentation. So there's another point I want to make in this chart, and that is you do not see any debt for the church. In fact, we do not have any debt for the church on that side of the ledger. However, the academy is part of the church, it's a ministry of the church, and the academy ended the fiscal year with $2.9 million in debt and $1.1 million in cash. As the school year has started and tuition payments have come in, they're currently at $4.4 million in cash, and the school board has approved a plan that retires their debt fully in the year of 2018. Now let's look at the next chart, and this shows you the plan that we have for this year that started July 1st. And here the plan calls for contributions at $6,100,000. That is up 6% from the actuals from last year. And the operating expenses are $5,385,000, and that is up 1% or $50,000 over what we spent last year. If, in fact, God were to bless this plan and this were to materialize, you can see that we would have positive cash from operations of $715,000. Now, as I said earlier, we believe we're ending this previous fiscal year in a good position relative to cash and cash reserves. So the way we plan is basically to plan our expenses about 10% less than our plan for contributions. We think this is a good way to establish our plan. Then if God were to bless it and those funds materialize, then we have identified plenty of ministry opportunities where we would like to apply this going forward. You heard from Missy Wallace earlier about a lot of great opportunities in the area of our faith and work ministries. You'll hear from Scott Sauls quickly about opportunities we see both locally and globally with indigenous church planting opportunities. We have other ministry opportunities like our special needs ministry that is growing and is a blessing to both our church and our city that we would like to also apply some funds towards. And last year, you may remember that we were able to take $115,000 of unplanned monies and apply it towards the crisis in Syria, the Syrian relief efforts. And if we were faced with other needs this year, then we would be blessed to help there as well. And last, you have seen some of the beautification projects on the central campus, in the sanctuary, in the hallways, in the cafe, and we have been able to do that through the cash from operations. So the next chart I'd like to look at with you then shows how we established the plan this year of $6.1 million. In 2010 and 11, you can see that we ended that year with $3,995,000. That was the year before Scott Sauls arrived as our senior pastor here at Christ Pres. Then the following 5 years, you can see that the increase in contributions in total was 44%. If you divide that by 5 years, you get an annual increase of about 9%. So we established about a 6% growth this year, and we'll look at that two ways. 1% comes from the fact that our second location in town last year only was worshiping for 9 months, and this year will be a full 12 months. That's 1% of the growth. And the other 5% comes by looking historically back over the last 5 years at that 9% growth rate and basically taking 50% of that. And that's how we arrived at the $6.1 million goal for this year. Now, the last chart I'd like to look at with you takes our expense plan for this year, and it shows you how those dollars are allocated by ministry area. And the area I'd like you to focus on is on the top left side of this chart, where you see 37% of our total spend goes towards missions and missional living. This is a traditional way that most churches look at supporting local ministries and partnerships as well as global ministries and partnerships. In addition, that $100,000 I mentioned that we're authorized to take out of cash and apply to missions and missional living adds another 2% to that, bringing our total spend close to 39%, or roughly $2.1 million. So again, as I end, I'd like to end where I started. I want to thank you for your generosity and your support and your love for our staff and these ministries. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to call me, email me, or stop in and see me in my office, and I'd be happy to try to answer any question you might have. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's good to be here with you today, and my job is, as it always is each year for this meeting, is to give what we call the State of the Church reflection. And as I always say every year, I'll say it again, the state of the Church of Jesus Christ is always strong, regardless of what's going on circumstantially. And the state of the church is always strong because our identity is in Christ and not what we're accomplishing and not in what we're getting done. And really anything else that happens around us that's positive, exciting, that we're on board with is really bonus on top of just the rich favor that we've got from God in Christ. And so I just wanted to really start there. I wanted to remind us of what Paul says in Philippians chapter 4, when interestingly he writes from jail. And he says, I can do all things through Christ. And that's the letter of joy. It's the epistle of joy. And so his circumstances don't impact him adversely. He says that whether I'm living in plenty or whether I'm living with nothing, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so the state of the church, as is always the case, is strong.
Jesus will build his church. The gates of hell will not prevail against it. And so that's our starting point, and that's what we get to live and dream and minister and serve out from. So now let me just transition a little bit to reflect on the last 4 years. Many of you are aware that my family and I relocated to Nashville from New York City about 4 years ago, a little bit over 4 years, and my initial meetings with the elders of Christ Presbyterian Church focused on a couple of things as we were dreaming and having vision about the future together. One was to see Christ Pres redevelop into a truly intergenerational church. And the language that we used was, what would it look like for the children and the grandchildren's generation of the founders of CPC to be flooding into this place to the end that there would be a truly intergenerational dynamic. That was a significant value, and many of you who've been here for these last 4 years know that there's been incredible momentum, and God has really blessed that dream and answered many of those prayers. We also agreed that we would prioritize health over growth, that growing Christ Pres numerically would never be a goal. It would only be a byproduct as God so chose and as God so decided. Whether or not he would want us to grow big or small was not really our concern. It's not really our focus as much as health is our focus. Cultivating a healthy church climate and a healthy church community that is essentially about three things: the worship of God, community and life together with one another, and faithful, loving, missional outreach to our city and to the world. And so CPC to me really does feel healthy. Only God is the ultimate judge of that, but it feels healthy as I look at our church from the lens of Scripture. And then as I look at our staff and just think about how our staff is enjoying peace, is enjoying unity, is enjoying just being energized together and goal-focused. And there's a culture of collaboration. There's a culture of mutual encouragement. There aren't, a bunch of silos kind of doing their own thing. We are a cohesive team, and we're very, very excited and encouraged to be part of that. We have hundreds of officers and lay leaders in our church family, both at CPC Central and CPC in town, men and women more energized and invested this year than they were last year, and more energized and invested last year than they were the year before, and so on. It just seems that our leadership dynamic is getting better and better every year. Again, more energized, more invested, more in. So just a lot of things to be excited about with respect to staff and leadership. There's a climate, according to our newcomers, according to our guests, according to our visitors. There's a climate here that is described, especially at our newcomers' desserts, where we get to interact with people who are new to our church community, as very hospitable. You are experienced as a church by new people coming in as welcoming, but also non-invasive. And so there's just this sense of encouragement that our guests feel, that make Christ Pres feel like a comfortable, safe place, as well as a place to be challenged in the gospel because of the climate that you as the members are building just by being kind and generous of spirit and looking out for those who you know well and enjoying community with them, but also looking out for those that you haven't met yet and making sure that nobody feels alone. So thank you for that. I feel that we have a healthy balance as well in our emphases, in terms of the energies and mind share and resources that are going into worship and that are also going into cultivating an environment in the church so that the church is a home and feels like a home to its members, as well as focusing on mission, our outward-facing efforts. I feel that there's real significant balance between those biblical emphases of worship and community and outreach, and those dynamics are getting stronger and stronger with each year. One of the real highlights of this is the ministries of care that have been richly developed and invested in, especially in the last year, but also the years prior. We've got just a wonderful team of counselors, of pastors, of lay people, of administrators that have created a dynamic of care at Christ Presbyterian Church that I really have not seen anything like it in any other church that I've been part of. Christ Pres is a safe place to suffer. Christ Pres is a safe place to struggle. And it is also a place where God is working and bringing healing in the lives of people through these teams of caregivers. People who are strapped financially, have access to resources within the church and the diaconal fund. People who need counseling for emotional struggles or marital challenges. There are avenues for that. And we've seen a number of marriages actually heal, marriages that were in great crisis and stress, even just this last year, heal and are on the mend, and husbands and wives coming together and experiencing newness and freshness, largely because of their willingness to engage and put themselves into this care process. And that's just getting better and stronger. We are becoming more and more kingdom inclusive as a church. We started out 4 years ago thinking about what would it look like to become more of an intergenerational church, but we've also seen a diversity of schools coming in, private schools, public schools, homeschooling families, all robustly part of our community at Christ Pres. We've got political diversity, we've got economic diversity, we've got ethnic diversity, and increasingly international diversity developing in our church. Last year was the most generous year in the history of giving at our church as well. Just in the past 4 years, and I think you may have heard Bob Bradshaw allude to this just a few moments ago, we have gone from a $3.9 million budget to something close to $6 million in the last 4 years. And we celebrate that. We rejoice in that. Because more resources means more opportunity for ministry, more opportunity to participate in the things that God is doing in Nashville and in the world. So we're very grateful for that. So the last year specifically, let me just talk about the last 12 months for a few moments. A few highlights that I'd like to add to the ones that you've already heard from the others who have shared. Here are some major things that happened just in the past year. Number one, we launched CPC in town, right across the street from Vanderbilt University, almost within walking distance from Belmont, Music Row, Lipscomb, that whole area in town. And we're grateful to be able to have a presence closer in to the city, and we're so proud of Stacey Croft, the lead pastor there, and the team that has been built around him. Now just even less than one year into it, in town has about 200 or so people worshiping every week there at Scarrett Bennett. They're creatively serving the neighborhoods. The community is becoming more and more cohesive, more and more of a family as they continue to get to know one another and live life together and so on. Another major highlight was that we got to launch the Nashville Institute for Faith and Work. And one of the things that excites me the most about this is that NIFW and Missy and Gage and their team are focused not strictly on benefiting Christ Pres, but also being a blessing to other churches. Let me give you an example of that. Gotham Fellows, which, imagine a combination of a Master's of Business and Leadership, as well as a Master's in Theology. So imagine combining those two concepts together in a one-year intensive. So we had 2 cohorts, and in those 2 cohorts, 13 different churches around Nashville were represented. Now, Now, our desire and interest in that strategy is not to pull people out of and away from their churches, but that by the end of the year, because of their participation in Gotham, they will become even better, stronger, more life-giving members and servants of their churches than they were beforehand. And so what we want to be is a church that is for the flourishing of all of the churches in Nashville and not just for ourselves. And so Gotham is a great representation of that we're very excited about. Some great stories have come out of Gotham as well that I'll tell one or two of them here in a minute. But another thing that we've done is we've gotten to add, largely because of your generosity, we have gotten to add some key ministry staff. One of those is Dr. Paul Lim, who of course teaches full-time at Vanderbilt, a beloved professor there. And so that gives Vanderbilt a significant presence here at Christ Pres, but it also gives Christ Pres a beautiful representation in Dr. Lim at the Vanderbilt campus. And so we brought him on, Paul, as our scholar in residence. You've noticed he's done a good bit of preaching and some worship leading and some teaching and some consulting with us on several things. So we've also added Russ Ramsey as our pastor for Seekers. And we're very excited about Russ because Russ is going to help us continue to develop meaningful, life-giving friendships with those who are curious about Christianity, who would not identify themselves as Christians. And so Russ is already underway in developing plans for that and doing some teaching and things like that to better help intersect Christ Presbyterian in town and Central with the community of people who do not yet have meaningful involvement in a local church. Another one is Steve Neesmith, who is our new Chief Communications Officer, and he's got a team that he's developing. He's already got two wonderful partners in crime in Marie Fazell and Justin Hunt, and just so grateful for that team. We hope to add to that team because a larger church with the many complexities that exist in light of being a larger church requires a greater investment in really effective communications efforts, both internally so that our members know what's going on and how to connect with the ministries that are coming out of Christ Pres, and also so our city and even people beyond our city can look in and see what's happening at Christ Pres, what God is doing here, and so that the kingdom might even bleed through things like websites and sermon podcasts and other ways of communicating with the outside world, so that again we're not just serving for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. And so we're very grateful for Steve and for his team and what they're doing and the plans and strategies that they're building for us. Another highlight in the last year is a significant growth in our community. Did you know that this time, year to date, we are now up in Sunday worship attendance by somewhere between 25 and 30% of where we were year to date last year, just in terms of the sheer number of people that are part of Christ Presbyterian Church. I want to remind you again, this is not a goal of ours. This is not something we're trying to make happen. It's just happening as a byproduct, we believe, of seeking faithfulness together to Jesus. And so it's something to celebrate. It's also created some challenges, which is why the next year we really want to focus on creating environments and opportunities for both new people and people who've been here a long time to connect relationally and maybe for some to reconnect relationally. And we have an ideal that we have sort of declared that we will not be satisfied until every person at Christ Pres from birth all the way to great-great-great-grandmas and grandpas can say that they have 5 meaningful friendships at minimum in the Christ Pres community. And so we're going to do things like connect groups and invest in community initiative efforts in things like our core communities and missional communities and such, so that there are multiple environments and options for members to take initiative to move toward other people and to put themselves in environments where those friendships can happen and can flourish. Did you know also that 65% of the people who call Christ Presbyterian their church are new to Christ Presbyterian within just the last few years? 65%, which means that there's some significant community building that we really need to be intentional about and make significant effort toward, especially in the coming year. And so that's why we've decided to make that our number one focus as a church in the next year. Another thing to celebrate is that we have been able to see more and more schools integrated into the life and ministry of our church. And Derek Harris in the youth ministry and also Casey Kramer could give you the statistics, but we're seeing more and more of a diverse school representation. Again, like I said a few moments ago, private schools, public schools, and people who homeschool. And of course, we love and celebrate and delight in our rich and ever strengthening relationship with Christ Presbyterian Academy, which is a significant ministry of our church, and we're grateful to see more and more coming together on things like having the same philosophy of discipleship and looking at sort of making the same kind of disciple and cultivating the same sort of Christian virtues and commitments in students as we do our church members. And yet at the same time, we're seeing scores of other schools come in because we have decidedly declared ourselves to be as Christ Presbyterian Church, a church for all schools, just as Christ Presbyterian Academy has declared itself to be a school for all churches. And so we open our arms and our hearts wide, and it's just incredibly encouraging to see just the flood and the influx of students and families that are coming both from our sponsored school across the parking lot and the other schools in Nashville. And we anticipate more of that in years to come. So our hopes for the year and the years ahead. You just heard just a few minutes ago Bob Bradshaw pointing out that we have a surplus from the previous year, and we're actually budgeting toward a surplus, meaning that we're anticipating more giving than what we will spend. And I want to say a little bit right now about the philosophy behind that. We have decided that our budgeting philosophy will always flow out of conservative assumptions, but aggressive dreams. Conservative assumptions, aggressive dreams, which means we do have a plan A and we have a plan B for our budget. Now, typically when you hear plan A, plan B, the plan A is the most aggressive budget, and the plan B is what happens if the money doesn't come in. So we have sort of reversed that. We are assuming, conservative assumptions, but the more that comes in, the more aggressive we get to be, the more proactive we get to be in serving and blessing our city and also serving and blessing our church community here. So I want to be clear before I talk about money and generosity. If God were for some reason to reduce our resources, say 2008 market crash happened again, or say some unforeseen circumstance happened, His will be done. We are not going to emotionally tie ourselves to money. We will, like Gideon, be very, very content with plenty of men or with just a few, or like Paul, living in plenty or living in want. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And so we will take whatever God entrusts to us to steward well, and we will seek to steward that well, whatever that means. That being said, I am of the firm belief, and many of us are of the firm belief, that our current ability for generosity as a church far exceeds our current actual giving. And what I want to say about this is we don't want your money. We want your health. There's that word again, the H word. We want your health infinitely more than we want resources to come into the church through your giving so we can do this or do that. And we also want you to be blessed. And what we've done is we've put our stake in the ground and we've said we are going to be one of those churches that believes Jesus when He says it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. It is more blessed to live generous lives than it is to hoard the things that God puts in our lap. And we're not just asking that of our members. We're actually committing ourselves to a generous life as a church. You heard just a few minutes ago, almost 40% of every dollar that comes into this church goes out to serve and to bless the world. That is 4 times the average of what churches typically send out. Typically, the average church will send about 10% of their resources out for outward-facing efforts. We have chosen to send out 4 times that percentage, give or take. And here's the beautiful thing about it. When your members are faithful, when your members, like the Apostle Paul said, excel in the grace of giving. The ability to be generous is a grace that's given to us by God. When we excel in the grace of giving, a byproduct is that it creates amazing possibilities. Let me tell you a little bit about what sort of the Plan B budget in the last few years has enabled, the Plan B being the surplus that we'd hoped for, but didn't presume upon. We have been able, because of that kind of audacious generosity, to pour into our care ministries in the ways that I've already described. And so lives are changing, marriages are changing, people are getting emotional help, financial help, and so on because of that generosity. By the way, Nashville Institute for Faith and Work would not have been started last year if it were not for that surplus generosity. We were able to do NIFW because you gave above and beyond. Another one is the race forum that we had here on this stage in the last year. That race forum, which included not only a panel of a Caucasian, an African American, an Asian, and a Native American, but it also led to, in the room of about 500 people from all over Nashville, it led to all kinds of relationships and networking, and also invitations into each other's spaces and into each other's lives, and a wonderful byproduct of just having that public forum where we invited Nashville in has been multiple relationships that have been developed cross-racially, cross-culturally, across the lines of different life experience for us as a church and other communities. I was invited to speak at an African American church revival this past year, for instance. We're having African American leaders and pastors coming in to speak from our pulpits and our platforms and behind our microphones to bring our communities together. Richie Sessions, who was one of the panelists on that race panel, was as a direct result of that experience invited to preach at an African American church toward North Nashville. And so these relationships are forming. It's all started with generosity and led to the ability to have those public events, which led to more kingdom, sort of ripple effects happening, as a result. So there's another example. The upcoming politics forum that we'll be having here on this stage with Governor Bill Haslam, a Republican, and with Michael Ware, who used to serve in the Obama administration, a Democrat. They're going to come together for a meaningful, lively, robust discussion. Samantha Fisher of WKRN is going to moderate that, of what it could look like to do politics healthy and in a way that sort of moves away from outrage and focuses on principles and kingdom things. And so we're going to invite the whole city of Nashville to come in and be part of that. And just as another way to get the message of the life-giving, unifying kingdom of God out there into our city. We would not be able to do that sort of thing without the above and beyond kind of generosity. Party on the Lawn. This is where we invite our neighbors and those who are spiritually curious to come on to our campus and intersect with our community. Last year, for instance, we had spiritually curious men and women. We had spiritually curious families. We had pastoral situations with neighborhoods with people in the surrounding neighborhoods that emerged from just coming to the party. We had some Muslim refugees come and be part of our Party on the Lawn. on, and they brought their children, and more connectivity with the city of Nashville happened through that. More gospel things organically happened through that. And of course, the generosity enables us to do quality things like quality worship experiences, hire quality staff, and so on. So what I want to do now is just end with a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of an appetizer. So in September and October at both Christ Pres locations, we're going to do a brief sort of 5-week series on a vision for the next 20 years. And we're going to dream together specifically about what it can look like to build toward a vision that results in something that sounds like this. And so I'm just going to read an excerpt from a document that is still in process that we're working on as a leadership, but it's called A Dream for a Better Tomorrow. And this is just the last paragraph of that document. Because God's kingdom is much greater than a single church, we will pray and work for the flourishing of all people and not just our people, of all churches and not just our church, of all cities and not just our city, and of all nations and not just our nation. We will do this chiefly by making disciples, equipping leaders, creating and sharing content, and starting new like-minded congregations, including cross-denominational and multi-ethnic ones, throughout Greater Nashville and across the globe. Because our city is a strategic hub for multiple spheres of impact, we will expect any movement of God's kingdom in Greater Nashville to also extend beyond Nashville to the world. We will pursue and embrace opportunities to share our resources and capital, whether spoken, written, creative, financial, relational, professional, or otherwise, toward Jesus' vision to bless and heal the world. As we do this, we will celebrate wherever, whenever, and through whomever God chooses to grow His kingdom. And never under any circumstances will we concern ourselves with who gets the attention or the credit. Our task is to advance His fame and glory and not our own. For it is from Him and to Him and through Him that are all things. And so here's the nutshell version of that. What could it look like to be part of a movement, one part of a greater whole that leads to the life-giving impact of God's kingdom saturating Nashville and through Nashville, the world? So, friends, Christ Presbyterian Church, let's pray, live, love, serve, and give to that end. Shall we? Thanks for listening.